on the prospect note, let's just jump in. We are, at least for the time being, going to be collaborating with our good friends over at MN Wild Prospects or MN Wild Young Guns, depending on how you search, whether it's by handle or by name, who, for whatever reason, Twitter wouldn't let them have the branding that they previously had. The Minnesota Wild were actually totally on board and supportive, but they were getting shut down and oh, you're trying to imitate the Wild. They're no, we're not. Please stop. But these guys are awesome.
It was the same thing with 10K. It was the NHL. The Wild were yes, please do it, and the NHL was no.
Was it the NHL?
No.
Ooh, interesting. I thought it was Twitter. Okay, fair enough. We love Baki, and his buddy who is actually overseas, who runs the account with him. I don't think either of them will be jumping on the show anytime soon because, again, the time difference overseas, and then Baki, as you all got little glimpses of when we did our prospect top 25 breakdown, he's got some kids to deal with. He's got a lot going on over there, but
they don't sit still. Apparently, a couple of young kids don't like to be stationary.
They seem like cool kids, though, so we'll give them that.
Yeah, they rock.
They are very fun. But so they will be contributing, whether it's contributing to segments like this, where we do our U25 depth chart for the Minnesota Wild as the organization currently sits. They've given us their contributions. We're going to compare their picks with Z's, talk through all of it. And in the future, they'll be weighing in, whether it's giving us topics that they want covered or even if they're ever available, having them jump in and to have a conversation with us around all of this. But we are covering today, again, the U25 for the Minnesota Wild. So we're actually, do we call it Team North America for the Wild?
I like that.
The whole world. Those jerseys were sweet, by the way.
Yep.
Also, 100%. Matt Murray. I need the Team North America Matt Murray jersey. That's the one.
You know what? Yeah, Pete Blackburn has it. Yeah,
he has the Murray.
Yeah, the Ryan Murray.
No, Matt Murray, you bastard.
Yeah, well, he has, which is funnier that he has a Ryan Murray Team North America. Apparently, it was given to him. They're like, "Here you go," and he was like, "Yeah, all right, oh yeah," and it's my favorite piece of hockey apparel that he owns. Is the Ryan Murray Team North. It used to be when he did his old shows that he used to do, he had it. I was like, you need to have the Ryan Murray in the background in every episode that you do because it's unbelievably funny.
It's funny. I don't think it's going to happen, but our boy Dev, shout out Dev with 10K. I messaged him about a bit where I thought it'd be hilarious if Blackburn just jumped on with us for a Wild segment and literally talked to us for 10 seconds and then peaced out. Dev messaged him. He's like, yeah, I'd fucking do that.
Yeah, of course he would.
That'd be awesome.
That's exactly the thing that's right up his alley.
It's so funny. I'm all about it. I love Blackburn. As much shit as I give him for hating the Wild, he's the best. But all right. All that aside, everyone go follow MN Wild Prospects or MN Wild Young Guns. It's actually at MNW Prospects on Twitter, and it's MNW Young Guns on Facebook. Check them out. They have awesome prospect coverage. They basically bring you everything we don't. They have the social presence. They have blogging, good articles. We just show up here and talk like idiots. So it's good balance if you get both. But check them out. Here we are, though, diving in on the U25 lists for both Z and our crew with MNW Young Guns. First line, as both have designated it, we've got, for Z, Yurov centering height and boldy. Young Guns, mostly different. We got Rossi centering ohgren and boldy. So Z, just talk us through why you made your picks and whether or not you loosely support or don't support what we've got from our buddies in their pick.
Yeah, so I originally I made about 6 or 7 different iterations of the forward lines. And the first few that I did I had ohgren or Rossi between ohgren and boldy. And then, so I decided to change it up just a little bit myself. Obviously, in the past, I've talked about Yurov, whether or not he's going to be a center in the NHL. Again, the Wild apparently are planning on it. And I lean more towards Yurov centering the top line, because I've seen him play center in a pro league in the KHL at a very high level already for a few seasons now, and he's doing it again this year. And I think there's a little bit more just like raw offense to his game. Marco Rossi gives you really good all-around play, and he can chip in offensively. Yurov this year and last year especially, he's really grown his game into like creating offense for line mates, not just himself, while also having that like game-breaking ability to score goals himself. So there's a little bit of playmaking, some goal scoring. He gives not quite as high level of defense as Rossi, but still a really good defensive forward as well. So I was going between him and Height at center too. I'm more confident in Height being a scoring winger versus like an NHL. I just haven't seen him enough like play. Well, we haven't seen him play any center against like pros yet. So I decided to keep him in the wing. But when I made the Ohgren Rossi bowling line, I wanted to incorporate a little bit more speed. So that's why I went with Height and Yurov on that top line to go along with Boldy. Like we've seen Boldy play really well with Eric Sinek, who's like similar style somewhat to Marco Rossi, but like you have Johansson on their wing who gives them that speed element. So I like the overall concept or that construction of the line where Height, who is capable of defending himself, but he doesn't have to do much of the heavy lifting when you have Yurov and Boldy there. But they also, all three of them possess some ridiculously high offensive upside. So I just like the balance a little bit and a little bit more speed. And yeah, that's where I landed with the top line there.
From them,
the Ohgren Rossi both are also really complementary well. So it's a like real nice line.
For sure. And I think the way they viewed it, just based on the notes they gave me, is like kind of the top two lines, a little interchangeable with some of the players. It's more like finding the right fit. You know, they said they think the first two lines, again, pretty self-explanatory, but you know, Height and Yurov both primarily looked at as center right now by the team, but they think that transitioning Yurov to the wing gives them the best possible first two lines, which we'll get into obviously with their next picks, tease. And another guy might as well go to the next one then, because again, we're going to talk about all these players. We don't have to dwell on this. But they say that Height continues to impress, as he has started off well in his AHL career after having a great OHL career. And I think, Z, at this point, we're probably in agreement, right? There's basically been two guys in Iowa that have been worth talking about. Is that fair, or am I being mean?
No, it's fair. They are now, like, of course, the second that we talked shit about them last week, they're now a 3-game win streak, and like
which is great.
Those 3 games, they looked incredible in those 3 games.
We just got to keep negging them. We just got to keep negging them.
I know, right? But Hunter Height has been awesome in the AHL on a not great team. Him and Mikey Milne have both popped this year so far. Hunter Height with a couple more points this past week. He looks awesome, and he's playing some center. He's playing wing. Like, they're using him a lot on the power play. But yeah, he's looked great. So
end of the day, we've got the same top 6 right across the two. Mm-hmm. What's your stance though on, like, if you were gonna give way with one of their picks, right? When we talk about first and second line, who's the guy that you think is most likely from your second line to be a good fit to move up and be part of that first line for the U25 group? So basically talking Rossi or Ohgren, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, probably Rossi, just because, I mean, we've seen him playing first line center with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. So you're probably just more confident just seeing how much more NHL games he's played. So I'd probably go Rossi. You know, Ohgren, fortunately, is now back down in Iowa, where he should have probably been to start. He scored an absolute rip the other day. So that was good to see. But, you know, for the time being, we'd like to see him get a lot more time in Iowa to really figure out where he's going to fit into that lineup in the future. But I mean, he's definitely got top 6 offensive upside. He's got like the perfect like NHL build, NHL frame. Plus, he's growing his like 2-way game too. Moves really well. But right now, that big calling card is that just absolute rocket launcher of a shot he's got. So he looks more like a sniper right now. But we'll see what Iowa goes on here and what he can continue to do.
Well, then moving on to the third line, and we'll start with the opinions of Baki and Pavel. We've got Kumpalainen, Lorenz, and Stramel. Kumpalainen being the center. And from their lens, line 3 delivers size and skill. Kumpalainen is going to be a good middle to bottom 6 center if he continues his trajectory. He had a great OHL season last year and was playing well in the Liga for his hometown Pelicans. Obviously, we talk about that quite regularly. Stramel had a tough couple of years. I don't think fans were at all aware of that. But these guys are seeing a different Stramel this season. I think we all are. Again, flashes of what could be, but we got to see a little bit more moving forward. But a lot of people labeling him as a bust. I think we're all on the same page, Z. That man and us. Like, still a ton of faith in him. He projects as an NHLer. It's just whether he ends up being a 3C or a 4C. And let's see what else they have here. Oh, and they've been very high on Lorenz, which you seem to agree, as he gets better with more responsibility. They know he can score, and obviously we've all seen like what he did in the national championship game last year to help carry Denver in that game. They just like his game between offense and penalty killing.
Yeah. So I went obviously with Caden Bankier centering Riegel Lorenz and Ryder Ritchie. And I mean, when I looked at Kumpalainen and Stramel, I wanted to see a little, especially with Stramel, I wanted to see just a little bit more. I mean, he's played 5 or 6 games at Michigan State right now. He's been awesome. He's the top of their lineup. He's producing, he's winning faceoffs, so he looks like a center. Wisconsin, he's playing a little bit more wing, obviously, when he was healthy and playing. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes there. It looks great right now. Again, I threw Riegel Lorenz in there. He gives you that offensive upside, but he also, as shown last year, he scored a couple of shorthanded goals. He's using them on the penalty kill. Like, he showed a really good 2-way game. Gives you some size and physicality there. We've seen Caden Bankier's just like astronomical like rise as far as his like trajectory as a prospect goes. So, I thought about whether or not I wanted to put him at 3C, but just given how well he's played since they drafted him, and I mean even last year coming in halfway through Iowa's season and being top 5 in points for them, like he's producing still there. This year's pretty much how the rest of the Iowa roster did. A little bit of a slow start for Bankier. He did look great that night. He finished with like 9 shots on goal the other night. So he's starting to figure out these like last few games here. But just given his trajectory so far, and since they drafted him, how much more offense was in there that we like. There was flashes of it before, but like just that second season with Cam Loops after he got drafted, he just went all the way off. Continued at the AHL Iowa, so threw him at 3C, and then Ryder Ritchie just gives that line an extra flair of just ridiculously high offensive upside. At first, I actually put him on the second line, but then I just wanted to have Hunter Height on the wing, so I moved him to the second line right wing. But I think Ritchie gives them some serious pop offensively. Bankier and Lorenz give you really good 2-way game. But there's some defensive prowess on that line. Again, Ritchie gives him the speed, and it's pretty much like how I would want to construct a third line. So I went with that. But yeah, no, I had different iterations where Kumpalainen and Stramel both in the third line, but just decided to go a little bit more offensive upside.
Yeah,
but I do love that the Lorenz, Kumpalainen, and Stramel line is just big, mean, and like Lorenz gives you some offensive pop too. So.
That's sandpaper for sure. And Mateo chimes in, and anyone else that's joining us live or comes back and views the video post-tense, comment. Like, if you've got opinions and you think that we've got this wrong, let us know what your lines look like. Mateo says his third line would be Jakub Lauko with Bankier and Lorenz, which, I mean, sounds very fun.
Yeah,
gives you the chaos element there.
I love how he's just the chaos element.
Yeah, I mean, he's just literally chaos and grapes, baby. That's what he brings.
I gotta say, Bank here is like the one guy that I'm like really, really cheering for right now. Like, I really want to see him play time up in Minnesota. He's just like such a good kid. He brings all of the elements, and like we've seen some of the offense. We just need to see it more consistently. But like, I really want to see him make that happen.
And like, and the thing too, though, like doing the like a U25 depth chart or whatever, it is really hard to figure out where guys like specifically what position to put them at, because there are so many guys that like they play center their whole lives. Whether or not they're going to be able to play center at the next level is always going to be a question. Like that's obviously an incredibly difficult position to play, especially when you're competing with like pretty much anyone in your age group. Like they've all played center at some point. There more guys have done that than like just wing. So just trying to figure out the best fit at centers. That's where I was just like, I can't figure out where exactly I want to put guys. Like it is crazy looking at their, like when you just pull up their depth chart, they have so few just like out and out natural right wingers, but so many of them end up playing out there that are probably listed as a center. So it's like difficult to try to like construct lines with positions with the guys that haven't played NHL games yet, or haven't even played AHL games yet. But so that's where I just kind of took a swing. It was either Bank here or Kumpalainen, to be honest.
No, totally fair. The fourth line, which is going to have like half the fan base up in arms because their favorite child is on both of your fourth lines. Also, I have to say, Z, you made it real difficult, Tommy, because you took the two longest names and put them both at wing. So I had to actually adjust my formatting here and just stack all three. You have Stramel centering Huznadinov and Kumpalainen. No possible way that Huznadinov and Kumpalainen could fit across horizontally together. And of course, Young Guns here have Huznadinov centering Bankier and Mikey Milne. Talk me through your fourth line.
Yeah, oddly enough, this was the most difficult line for me.
Because you got to figure out who you want to disrespect.
Literally. So, and like the two guys that I listed as extras were Mikey Milne and Jimmy Clark. But when I looked at what I wanted to build the fourth line on, first of all, I thought it'd be really funny if I just had two massive mutants and Kumpalainen and Stramel playing on the same line as Huznadinov, like the 5'9", 5'10". He's like 5'7". Just like, I mean, he's the Russian piss missile. But I mean, Huznadinov, you can put him anywhere in like that bottom six. He can play center, he can play wing. He's just so good at what he does, and he does have that flash of offense there. But Stramel and Kumpalainen, they're just so good defensively. Again, they're big, super physical. Like when you're talking about wearing down another team, like that's like a fourth line you could probably put up against. Like you could probably, like if you're matching up against other teams, some of their best players, maybe not their first line, but like any like secondary offense, you can shut them down with like these three guys. And I just like the different elements that they all bring. Especially with like just thinking about Kumpalainen and Stramel just crushing guys, and then out of nowhere, you're just like, who's flies up the ice with the ball, you can't catch him.
I do kind of like that vibe. I think what was it last year? Who was on the other? So it was Rossi in between Foligno and someone else that was big, and I found some picture. It was like from Game of Thrones.
Maroon.
It was like Maroon, yes. And it was some picture from Game of Thrones where it's like Tyrion Lannister between like two like hulking thugs. It was like kind of like one of those like sketches that's not actually from the show, but like it's what it represents. That's what I get from this, except Huznadinov can fucking pause. Like it's just different. That is very fun. From our boys Baki and Pavel. Bottom line is some hard workers. Bankier continues to bust his tail, get better, and play in whatever position he is asked. From juniors to the World Juniors. That twisted me up. I think they did that on purpose. To now the AHL. Huznadinov is a speedy player with a great motor. we like what he brings, being a maniac and great penalty killer. And they're just not going to comment on Mikey Milne, but you left him off. He was a snub, and he's a guy that, alongside Height, is really the other Iowa guy that was worth talking about before this 3-game streak, right?
Yeah, no, it was really difficult not putting him in. At the end of the day, I just kind of had to lead on like guys like Kumbelein and Stramel have more upside. Huzadinov, we've seen clearly as an NHL player and a really good one already. Mikey Milne is awesome. I think he'll play in the NHL. Whether or not he becomes a full-time NHL guy, we'll see still. I mean, anytime like any of those types of players is always a question mark anyways, but I just had to go with like more so like the NHL certainty, a little bit more upside. Even though I do think Mikey Milne will end up being an NHL player and just like a really solid one. He's gonna be like similarly like a Connor Dewar type.
Sure.
That's what he kind of looks like.
And 13th forward. So one guy out. I know you've got a list of honorable mentions because you being you, we've got to make sure we don't disrespect anybody. But to Jordan Bebus's comment, is Jimmy Clark legit? What's the deal here? And 13th forward for them was Jimmy Clark. And that's really my only note for all of you guys is the Jimmy Clark erasure is not going to be tolerated. Not on this show. Z, talk about Jimmy Clark and then proceed into the remainder of your honorable mentions at forward.
Yeah, well, the only two that I put, I think, were Jimmy Clark and Mikey Milne.
You only have two? Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, the guys that I listed as just missed out were all defensemen.
That's right.
Yeah, but Jimmy Clark is, I mean, I think we both knew that he was going to have a good year this year. Like, again, this is a kid that found out he's going to college and not going and playing the USHL. Like,
you guys want to hear more about that? Tune in Wednesday. Fellowship of the Rink.
Yep, exactly. And like every time we've ever talked about him, like we will mention this. I mean, we've never gone an episode without talking about that if Jimmy Clark comes up. It is like I can't emphasize enough. It's so impressive.
I don't know if you were aware yet, but the fun stat for him. Do you know how many points he had last year as a freshman?
10, 11?
He had 11 in 39 games. How many does he have right now through 8 games?
He's 1 away, yeah.
He's at 10.
Yeah, I tweeted that out on Sunday.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oh my God, that was yesterday. Holy shit. Actually, does this drop Thursday? So, no, okay.
No, this will be Tuesday. You're good.
Okay, got it. But yeah, I mean, through 8 games, he's 1 point away from his total from last year in 39 games. Obviously, that comes from him, playing with Connor Kirk, and Matthew Wood, but just obviously getting significantly more minutes, significantly more responsibilities. He's winning faceoffs. He's playing at both ends of the ice. That's the line they throw on in every big situation. I mean, like on Saturday, he just a ridiculous, like one-handed tip with 30 seconds left in the third period, just scored for the 1-0 win against Penn State. But I mean, when you watch those games, he is everywhere. Like on the forecheck, he's winning pucks, creating offense that way. He's winning pucks in the neutral zone. He's defending. He's killing penalties. Like he's affecting the game in all 3 zones. So like, I mean, it's been 8 games this year, but he's obviously trending in the right direction. And after, like, even if the point total didn't jump off the page last season, he was a big time player for them in those kinds of situations as well. A couple of goals that he did score, like there was one, I think it was Michigan State. He scored the OT winner last year, which was a nasty goal. So he does possess that like pretty legit skill. He was one of the better passes in the USHL last year there. And it just happens to go along with a really well-rounded, complete all-around game. So he's looking the part right now. Obviously, 7th round pick, playing college hockey. He'll probably be there for 3-4 years. So we'll see what happens. It's always like, it's just a matter of if he continues, but like as of right now, he is trending towards being legit. So we'll see. But I mean, he's looked great. Those 3 specifically, I pulled up their stats. So they're Connor Kurth, Matthew Wood, and Jimmy Clark, 3 top scorers of Minnesota. Kurth plus 13, Matthew Woods plus 10, Jimmy Clark's plus 12. Like when they're on the ice,
Kurth and Wood literally only good things. 5th in college, right?
All right, yeah.
Fun.
When they're on the ice, only good things happen. Like it's incredible. So, yeah, he looks awesome. It was really, really, really difficult to keep him off. But again, he got drafted 2 years ago. We've seen a little bit more from Stramel just going back over the years. Same thing with Kupline. And like we've seen, Kuzma is an NHL player. So, just in terms of how much we've seen from them, where they've played so far, it's where we landed, or where I landed anyway. But it was really hard to keep him off. But I mean, I talked about Mikey Mill. I think he's an NHL guy, but same thing.
Yep, for sure. All right,
he sucks to play against. By the way, he pisses everyone off. Like not quite to like a Bunting level, but like he's such a little rat, and it's awesome. Like he is so. He talks so much shit every single shift. Great sellies. He rules. I love Mikey Mill.
A ginger marshand. Scary. All right, let's move on to the blue line then.
This was fucking impossible, by the way.
Dude, first pairing, big discrepancy. I'll just read for the boys over at MNW Young Guns. The first D pairing is quite obvious and is going to be a decade of amazing for the Wild's future. We obviously know what Faber can do, and buium just had the record for most points in an NCAA season for a D-man, ahead of the likes of Cale Makar and Adam Fox. Z, go off on this very mediocre and average D pairing.
Yeah, this was out like constructing the D lines was borderline impossible. I really wanted to split up buium and Faber. We
talked about this, dude. I was really disappointed. So neither of you did it. I was really disappointed.
It was just like when I did, it's like didn't really make sense with the other combos. And I mean, like this is another situation where they've got a million left shot Ds in their pool and a handful of right shot. And, you know, a couple of the right shot Ds are still going to be a big question mark, whether they end up playing in the NHL or like full time. Almost none of them are going to be playing in Minnesota. Like that's what's crazy about this. They have so many. So there's going to be moves. It's going to happen. But I mean, buium and Faber, they might play like 35 minutes a night. Like Faber still is producing like relatively decent offense while being just a ridiculously good shutdown D-man. I think he's like 4th in time on ice so far this year. So, I mean, we know what Faber is, and buium is just doing the same exact thing he was doing last year, just without the goals. I think he's got 10 assists so far through the first 6 games. He looks like he is playing a different sport. Like when you watch Denver, when he gets the puck, like he's like a fucking shapeshifter. You know, he doesn't even like take a stride. He's just like spawning in different spots on the ice.
He's the guy. Hang on. He's the guy that Klingberg is staring off into space watching when he's out on the ice.
No, that's him. Yeah, when Klingberg forgets that he's on the ice.
Because he's watching buium off in the distance.
There's so many of those. It used to be my favorite thing in the world.
Wait, where is he now?
I don't know if he's playing.
He's got to be playing somewhere.
Maybe in Europe. I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up.
I don't think he got signed, but I mean, like, again, buium literally looks like he's playing a different sport when he gets the puck. Like, it is so fun to watch.
The first thing that pops up for a John Klingberg search. John Klingberg is untradeable at this point.
That's mean.
First thing that popped up.
But yeah, I mean, just imagine a future top pair of buium and Faber. Like, it is just comical. Like, it's just so fun. Even though, like,
I'll throw out 2007, the best deployment of a blue line that I've ever seen is literally having either Niedermeyer or Pronger out there for 90% of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my argument against this. I don't know who you designate as first and second pair. I don't give a shit. I want them split up just for that reason, because I want one of them out there dominating play the entire time. And yeah, no home right now for Klingberg, apparently, at least in the NHL. Let's see if I can find something else. But yeah, we love this. All right, second pairing. Z, I'll let you lead off. Lambos and Hunt. Tell me why the Young Guns are off with their pick of Lambos and Hunt.
Yeah, this is another one where I was just like, I mean, I've seen Lambos play for so long. It is interesting, like his last in WHL, and since he's got to Iowa, like his for the draft, his highlight tape is him like looking like fucking Cale Makar at the blue line, and like how shifty he is with the puck. He's got an absolute missile of a shot, and he looks like he's just a high point producing defenseman. So, like last in WHL, and since he's got to Iowa, he is used heavily on defense. And I mean, he's always been a good enough defender. He's getting even better now. So that's why, like, when people like look at his stats, they're like, "Oh, he's doing nothing." It's like, no, he's playing like 27 minutes a night of just like, I mean, brutal 27 minutes. Like he's out there pretty much for the whole penalty kill. like he lives in his own end. So I would like to see him like again, like just be given a little bit more offensive leash. But I mean, he can play a ton of minutes. He plays really well defensively. He's incredibly physical. He got in a fight the other night and just teed off on someone. I forget who he was fighting, but I don't think they wanted to fight at all. And they're like, God damn it. Okay, fine. And he kicked the shit out of him. And I mean, I just had to put Damon Hunt in here because, A, he's good enough to be playing in the NHL right now. He can play both sides. When you look at Lambos and Hunt, like they give you a little bit of offense, but defensively they're solid. They can both play a good amount of minutes. Damon Hunt, again, looks like he's just like on another level in the AHL. Like he just shouldn't be there, but with the way things worked out, that's where he is at. But I mean, I just like those two together. Like they play a lot together in Iowa too. It looks good. It's fun. They both move the puck well. They both move really well with their feet. So yeah, I like the overall, and I'm confident in both of them. That's the other thing with the defense core. Like they've got a bunch of guys that look good, like with some decent upside, but you know, as far as like the NHL style or just like certainty, I feel pretty good about Lambos and Hunt. So
nice. All right, two things then. One, I found this, but also Cosgrove has plenty of detail on Klingberg. Klingberg is done. Realized he had a terrible injury on the plane ride. We're going to say ride to Sweden last year, I think, with the Leafs. Wasn't Klingberg offered like $50 million by the Stars and he turned it down to bet on himself? Cost him $40 million. That's tough. That's very tough. For me, the one thing that I'd push back on here, because I like current state, completely agree. Lambos Hunt makes all the sense in the world here for the second pair. I don't think Hunt ever like plays a full season for the Wild, and that's not his fault. I think that he's ready to play now, and it's sad that he's not in a position where he can. I just think he's like, it's the wrong timing. It's gonna lap up wrong where he's ready too early, and he's gonna get frustrated in Iowa, and they're probably gonna end up trading him. He will be an NHL defenseman. He already is an NHL caliber defenseman. I just don't think we see him do that in Minnesota long term. I hope I'm wrong. I love Damon Hunt. He's very fun, but that's kind of where my head is at. And Mateo says the Wild would love to have Hunt up here playing in the NHL full time per Russo on daily faceoff with the 75-year-old.
Saravalli.
Nice. Good dig, Mateo. I love that. With the 15-year-old, apparently. That's the craziest thing in the world. That is weird and wild and so many other things. I don't know what to call it.
No, but on the Damon Hunt thing too, like you said, it's pretty. I mean, just with
I want him to go to Columbus. Columbus, please.
There's a good chance that, like you said, is going to be the case here. And the other thing is too, like Damon Hunt forever has been a guy that like every NHL team knows about Damon Hunt because he's very highly thought of forever in like the Team Canada, like in terms of like World Juniors goes. He just happened to get hurt every fucking like preseason, like World Juniors camp. It's still unbelievable to me how bad his luck was, like the World Junior camps. Like he was like a shoe-in to make the teams and then somehow got a freak injury either right before camp or during camp or at the very end of camp. It's unbelievable. But I mean, when you look at like teams looking to pick up a young defenseman that could probably get thrown in the lineup right now, like you probably get like as far as the prospects go, if you're having to move on from some guys, you probably get like a decent package for a guy like David Hunt, a guy that can play now. He's still young, and has a long, successful track record. So it sucks. He's such a good player, and he's a very fun, just like person, just an interesting dude. So it sucks that like it doesn't feel super likely that he's a full-time guy here. But I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens with like any potential moves. But I mean. Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong again. Like I very much don't want that. That's just
we should lobby for it so it doesn't happen, because nothing that we want happens.
Trade him. Yeah, trade him immediately.
I'm gonna fucking DM. Hey,
stop saying I want him traded to Columbus, because if he does get traded, that's where I need him to go.
Dean's gonna text you like, haha, fuck you. Oh my god, damn it.
Oh, package him with Freddie? We're just gonna trade him again.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck.
Yep. Nope. That's good. All right. Let's move on then to the third pairing.
I laughed while doing this one, by the way.
Okay. Well, let's get into it then. Love that. Kivi Haru and Spacek. Garen's favorite player and Russo's favorite player. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was no way that I wasn't going to get Aaron Kivi Haru into this. Especially given right now, I think he's in a 4-game point streak. He is now being thrown on their top pair. He is quarterbacking their power play. He's scoring goals. He's got some assists. He's playing, I think, like the first 8 or 9 games, he had played like 13, 14 minutes a night. The last 4 or 5 games, he's up around 18, 19. Couple games of over 20. But again, he's producing points. The big question is going to be just like the combination of his size and the foot speed. As far as like actual defending goes, he's solid, and a lot of his defensive value just comes from his ability to kill plays before they kind of like start. So a lot of like in the neutral zone, breaking up odd man rushes. The big question again, it's going to be the size and the speed, because he doesn't have foot speed, although he is like a super agile player. It's just, again, like once you start going up against some of those guys in the NHL that are like fast and fucking strong shit, they might be able to blow by us. That's gonna be a big question mark. But I mean, he's playing in Finnish Liga right now, a league that doesn't produce a ton of offense, and he is now like really producing, which is incredibly impressive.
I love that it's Liga for league. That just makes me so happy.
Finnish Liga, baby. But he looks great, so I was gonna have to put him in there. And I do think he becomes an NHL player, and like he does have a legit ceiling just with how like smart he is, how good of a playmaker he is offensively. So it's just again, it's always going to be a question of the size and the speed. And I mean, David Spacek, he scored an absolute rocket yesterday, like off balance, like he was still like skating backwards and just stepped into one on the power play, top corner. He's got the offensive outside. He's got inconsistent defense, but can defend. It's just certain times he gets walked. But I mean, that's every young defenseman. But he gives you some power play ability there. Again, he's got size, and he has some defensive prowess there too. So I figured when I looked at like a guy that can give you some secondary offense, second power play unit, and I mean, it's always good to have the NHL bloodline there for whatever reason. Tends to work out. But I thought those two together could be interesting. Speed's going to be a problem, but like they both give you some offensive upside. Spacek really looking like he could give you a lot. So I don't know. He's looked good in Iowa too, by the way. Like Spacek's been pretty good. It was legitimately soul crushing to not have my boy Kyle in there. He scored his first goal the other day of the season.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, he is. Like, I don't know if there's ever been someone that's been more your boy than Kyle Masters. I also missed, commenting in for Baki and Pavel here for the second pairing, Lambos and Hunt. For the second D pairing, we believe Lambos and Hunt belong here. Hunt is progressing along quite well. He has looked good in his NHL stints and is the most NHL-ready D-man in Iowa. That's without question. We like the potential of Spacek. He always seems to up his game at the international events. so much to the point that some people confuse him for other countrymen. And we think he could, that was my ad lib, by the way. I don't want to put that on them. We think he could be a fine D-man. Wow, I thought it was going to be fine damn. That's my dyslexia kicking in. Fine D-man. And we like O'Rourke's hard-nosed style of play. And that's getting into the third pairing, which let's see, do they go into that more? I don't think so. All right. Either way, we're good there. But yeah, O'Rourke, like, do you feel like, where are you at on O'Rourke? We haven't talked about him a ton of late. Like, are you not giving up on him? Because I know you don't really do that, but like, have you kind of resigned to the idea that he just doesn't really have a future outlook with the big club?
Not necessarily. Like, my original idea was to have Kivi Haru and O'Rourke, because O'Rourke, especially in the OHL, he basically only played on the right side. And I mean, he was.
So you just want Russo to still be friends with you? I got you.
Yeah, exactly. But no, spot check just again, like, I was going to throw Kivi Haru in there no matter what. Spot check gives you some like second power play ability, and a little bit more like offensive upside than a guy like O'Rourke. Again, O'Rourke, same thing with like Lambos. Like, he plays 27, 28 minutes a night, literally all in his own end. He did have 2 assists the other night, which was great, but it's hard for him to stand out on a bad Iowa team, like in a positive way, when it's like he, again, only plays in his own end, and he's playing the whole penalty kill. Same thing with, it's like, it's those two just getting those minutes. So it's hard for him to stand out. Like, and it's just so weird watching that version of Ryan O'Rourke versus like when he was in the OHL, he's put up like 70 points, 130 penalty minutes, like 20 goals. Like, he was doing literally everything for the Sioux. But I mean, I still think there's an NHL future for him. Again, it's going to be a big question if it's with Minnesota or not. Sure. He is such a fucking good defender. And again, he moves well. He's big. He's fucking mean as shit. So I do like his game in general. I've never wavered on that. It's just, it's hard for him to stand out as a guy with like any kind of like legit upside, like the flashy upside, when like his role is pretty much to play those tough minutes all game in Iowa on a bad Iowa team.
Yeah,
but who knows? Maybe this week they were the best team in the AHL. So I mean, who knows? Maybe it's turning around. But yeah, I kind of just went with like spot check gives you the offensive upside, and I mean, realistically, fucking buium and Faber will be on the ice for 35 minutes a night. So
love that. Yep. All right. And to be clear, the 7th defenseman for Baki and Pavel was Aaron Kiviharu. You already mentioned your boy Kyle Masters and Kalen Parker being the other extra. Whatever you want to say on those two, go off before we wrap it up here with the goaltenders.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked plenty about Masters, but Kalen Parker, again, he's looked so good in WHL again this season with Moose Jaw. He's on their top D pair there. He's quarterbacking their power play. He's putting up some points, defends really, really well. He's a great skater. Again, it just comes down to the fact that they've got so many defensemen in this pool. And I mean, he's a relatively recent draft pick, but he's a right shot. So if he continues to progress the way that he is, he will be challenging a guy like Spotchuk. I think the thing is too in Minnesota, I think they've like, there's just no way that any of these right shot defensemen are going to surpass how they look at David Spotchuk. So like, that's going to factor in. Like, I know like not only Russo, but like the Wild love this kid. And again, every time I do this, like it's
just fun to tease Russo because like Russo is the authority on Minnesota Wild hockey. So it's like, it's fun to like poke jabs at him because like he's obviously right and we're idiots. Whereas like poking fun at the Wild, it's like, no, people will maybe think that we're right and the Wild are wrong. So that's the angle there, by the way. Love Russo.
And yeah, and I mean, like, and even beyond the Wild, I'm sure like the rest of the NHL would be in the same boat. Like, they're very high on David Spotchuk, and Kalen Parker's like obviously a relatively unknown guy, but I am just so impressed every time I watch him, like how fluid his game is, how smooth he is offensively and defensively, how well he moves. Again, he's a right shot. Another guy, like his shot is phenomenal. He scores in a variety of ways. He's flash playmaking ability from the blue line. But again, that big calling card is just a two-way game. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's gonna be tough for him to like pop in this prospect pool, even though he's a right shot guy. But I at least wanted. I was planning on figuring out how to get him in there, but then I just looked at I was like, I can't. But if we were doing like a U23, maybe it would be a little easier.
True. That would be very different. All right. Before we get into the goalies, real quick from again our good friends over at MNW Young Guns, or as they'll label it here, for MNW Prospects, we would just like to point out that we generally have two groups of prospects and young players. One group consists of players with high potential who may end up being better than some of our other prospects. These are players whose development requires more time. That's okay. Sometimes that's just how it is. The transition from junior leagues isn't easy. Often they are players of smaller stature, though that isn't always the case. Examples include Height, Richie, Kiviharu, Bankier, and Height. Rossi was among them as well. Then we have a second group of players who need minimal time and could almost immediately step into the league and play, similar to Boldy or Faber. Those being Ohgren, Kuznetsov, Kumpalainen, Lorenz, Spacek, Hunt, Stramel, and Milne. Their ultimate potential may be somewhat lower for some. Of course, Boldy and Faber don't fall into this category, but they show fast and steep growth. We would also like to add that so far we are rather disappointed with Carson Lambos' development. A few years ago, we wouldn't have believed that Hunt or O'Rourke would be doing better at this point, although there's definitely still time for this to change. Anything you want to comment on there, Z, before we hit goalies? And if you just agree, then don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, like not tons, but like, yeah, I mean, an exercise like this is always tough to like figure out how to construct lines with guys that, like they said, it's like the floor versus the ceiling thing. There are certain guys that like we haven't seen a ton of, but their ceiling is so high you have to figure out how to put them in, like a guy like Ryder Ritchie. And then, yeah, I mean, the Lambos thing's going to be a big question forever. Like,
he's either going to be second pair or he's not going to be part of it.
He's kind of just become like a victim of circumstance, like for the last 4 fucking years. I mean, realistically, starting in his draft season when he had the really weird like issue, the health issue that like made him miss half his draft year too. Like he went from a guy like a top 10 projected to like end of the first round guy, which was where he ended up getting taken. And then since then, like the stuff that made him a really flashy prospect, like he was just used like pretty much not with those talents of mine. So it's just been weird to like watch him. So I would say I'm not overly disappointed with like his progression as a prospect. Like he's playing the toughest minutes humanly possible for a guy like him, but like he's still fine. And I mean, I can still see him playing like a third pair, like defensive with like really good skill, transitions the puck really well. Like there's still, that's the thing. I could see him up and down the lineup, to be honest with you. Still, like he does have that upside, but like he does have a good enough defensive game that he could play on your third pair too.
Fair enough. This should be a pretty brief discussion, but goaltending. Slightly different, but really no one cares beyond Jesper Wallstedt. You've got Wallstedt followed up by Chase Woodsky, whereas they have Wallstedt followed up by Levi. I think I'm pronouncing that mostly correct. Just real quick, I mean, obviously, it hasn't been awesome so far for Wallstedt. I don't think
this week it was. He was really good both games this week.
Sure.
Thank God.
But people were worried for no reason because, like, why? It's crazy to me that anyone had concerns, but it's okay. It's okay. That's okay.
I love it though. That's
fun.
What I'm like. Really? Okay, sure.
But talk to me, just like generally speaking, why did you pick Woodsky over Levi?
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, I just watched more Woodsky, especially like played Northern. Like, if you told me that, like, if we look in 5 years from now and like Lavash, however the fuck you say it, is like a backup NHL guy and he's like significantly better, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can see that happening. But especially since they drafted him, I've watched a lot of more like Red Deer just to watch him play. He's looked really good, more familiar with his game. Levi's played primarily in Europe, so obviously like just trying to figure out the balance there, like him coming over to North America and playing. But like, I mean, he's got a really long track record of success with, was it Slovakia. So I went back and forth between those two. At the end of the day, I just kind of like threw let's get there, just because I've just watched him play more.
Fair enough.
Pretty sound game. Again, like we not obviously not the level of wallstedt, but like similar just in terms of like a lot of his big call card is like how well he reads the game. So that's one thing you can notice when you watch him as a not goalie expert.
I was gonna say, like, none of us know goalies, like, not our place. As a non-goalie expert, all three names freaking rock, so I'm good either way.
Yep. Big fan.
Anyone that just joined in for the first time because you follow the awesome folks over at MNW Young Guns or MNW Prospects, whatever you know them as, please do subscribe to the Sota Pod YouTube channel, the Sota Pod podcast feed, and the Judd'z Budz specific podcast feed. Those are Z's, not S's. That's right. And of course, all of our followers, listeners, please do go to either Twitter at MNW Prospects, or go search on Facebook for MNW Young Guns.